Well, hello, everyone, and welcome again to the podcast. And I'm really glad for you to get to know today Bianca Hughes. Welcome, Bianca.
Thank you so much for having me, Gordon.
Yes, I'm looking forward to our conversation. And so, Bianca, as I start with everyone, tell folks a little more about yourself and how you've landed
Mhm.
where you've landed.
Yeah, as I was I was briefly saying to you, I'm born and raised in London
Mm,
to Caribbean parents. And this being a therapist is my second career. And I like to say that I didn't realize I was going to be building a private practice. I started with what I wanted as having a career in travel for 10 years. I knew I didn't want to be behind a desk. And I always said I want to work 3 days a week, seeing clients and do other stuff. And just morphed into because I was in a hospital and it's morphed into a private practice. And so I see clients who are high achievers, a lot of high achievers who are trapped by perfectionism and helping them be their authentic selves. I also do speaking for corporations, events, and conferences. And then I have a community. Online community for therapists, helping them build thriving careers, because there's
mm-hmm,
so many things we're not told in grad programs. And I
mm-hmm.
really like to support people to do that. And so that we're not burned out as
Right.
therapists.
Yeah, so that's an interesting niche that you've gotten into working with overwhelmed professionals. So, how did you
Yeah.
land on that?
I looked in the mirror, Gordon.
Yeah.
I am. I done a lot of my own personal work working through the perfectionism. Still crops up, every now and again. Every still crops up, but being able to recognize it and be my authentic self has helped me in so many ways, professionally and
Mhm.
personally.
Yeah, that's always an interesting question. I think is being yourself or being your authentic self. And so, yeah, I guess one question that comes up for me is just what exactly is that for people? Would you say
Yeah.
being your authentic self?
I feel like it's something that answer has evolved over the years. And in this season, I like to say it's about alignment to our truth, alignment to how we are wired as people, what truly lights us up versus what drains us, and really breaking through what we've been told we should do or how we should be, and really seeking and taking the time to learn what is true for me and listening
Hmm.
to our gut, right, instead
Hmm.
of ignoring. And I think, living up to the expectations of ourselves rather than others.
Yeah, it's I've struggled with those things too over the years and just really, and, in this, as you put it, in this season in my life, it's just, really gotten to a place where, okay, I need to take care of me and
Mm-hmm.
be true to myself and that sort of
Mm-hmm.
thing. And I think
Yeah.
that's so important for anyone, regardless of their career. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think
Yeah.
also it could be hard. I mean, sometimes I say it to make it easy, but because some people could be like, oh, that's selfish or whatever. And I'm like, well, once you're in alignment and you're your authentic self, everyone else benefits. And you also
Right.
inspire other people to be authentic too.
Yeah, that's
Mhm.
very true. Very true. So you started out in your therapy career working in a hospital. Did I get that correct?
Yeah, so I started out in a hospital and I was also doing private practice. Actually, I've been doing private practice since internship because
Hmm.
my grad program had their own counseling center and we had to
Right.
do one evening a week. And then I was also interning at a hospital. And then once I graduated, I continued that. But the majority of my hours I was getting done in a hospital.
Right.
I did more PRN work so that I
Yes.
could still do private practice at the same time.
Right. Yeah. So when you started your private practice, what did you learn?
I
Hmm.
think I learned very early on as an APC that being in private practice, you're also a business owner. And so that means you have to change your mindset. that you're going to be wearing two different sets of hats. You're going to be sitting with people, and then you're going to have to be marketing and branding and niching down and things like that. And so it's really shifting the mindset. It wasn't so much about, oh, all the other stuff. Yeah, you got to get a business name, an EIN number, and all of that stuff. That's great. But if you don't shift the mindset, that's going to make a difference. So I shifted my mindset very early on when I was an APC, so that by the time I got my full license and can own my business, it was just a name change for me.
Mm-hmm.
So that was
Mm-hmm.
one of my biggest lessons, the mindset.
And so if we were to dig into that a little bit more
Mhm.
with the mindset, where do you see people struggle the most with that?
First of all, when you become a therapist, it costs you money. Even if you don't own a private practice, it costs us money. Our continuing
Mm-hmm.
education, our license, to just constantly be a therapist, it costs you money. I don't think anyone tells us that it will cost you money for the rest of your life to be a
Right.
therapist. And then I think that there is a lot of low pay. And so that is a big conflict in that sense. And
Mm-hmm.
so recognizing, so that's one thing. And so then
Mm-hmm.
recognizing, in order to be a successful business owner, I've got to begin to focus on return on investment. Where am I going
Right.
to put my money into, whether it's a coaching course, marketing, to get my clientele so that I can get that money back. So I had to
Mm-hmm.
shift at things, my mindset, like not that I was spending money, but that I was investing my money. And let's not even talk
Mm-hmm.
about all the money stuff that comes up, money shame and being
Right.
therapists and how much do we charge, and like you have to work
Mm-hmm.
on so many different things, right? And then we're
Right.
being told don't expect to earn money, and then there's a conversation you shouldn't charge this much. It's a lot of things you have to work through in order to
Mm-hmm.
thrive and be successful that I don't think we consider.
Yeah. And I think one of the big mindset shifts that people have to really come to terms with is, and I think hopefully graduate schools are getting a little better with this, but this whole idea that in order to help people, you don't charge a lot, or you don't, if you're, or even to an extreme, if you don't charge for your services, then, I mean, if you're charging for your services, you're not helping them, kind of thing. And so,
Yeah.
yeah. And so I think that is a huge set shift that we have to go through, and just thinking about, like you said, ROI, thinking about the financial side of running a practice and doing it in such a way that it's profitable and sustainable.
Yeah. And I think also the mind shifts, if I 100% agree, and I don't know if they're changing their minds, but I hope so. But I do a lot with my old graduate program. So I'm just telling them everything up front before they graduate.
Hmm.
So graduate. But I think also asking ourselves, is private practice for us, and what type of private practice do we want to be in? So
Hmm.
am I a person who wants to go out and basically kill for the
Hmm.
food every day? And if you're not,
Right.
then
Right.
you need to be in a private practice where they do everything for you. You can still be
Hmm.
in there, but if you've got to go kill your food every day, or, so often, are you that kind of person? Do you have that
Hmm.
personality? Can you deal with the ups and the downs, or are you like wanting more structure? I think those are the
Hmm.
questions as well. So then maybe a group practice is better for you and they do everything and you don't do any marketing. I think as well, I agree also at the grad level is not just, oh, you can be in private practice, but what kind of personality do you have to be in the different types of private practice as well?
Right. And I think a lot of it has to do with our money mindset, not only what we're trained, but also what we grew up with, and, kind of
Yeah.
a scarcity mentality and that sort of thing
Yeah.
plays into it as well.
Yeah. 100%. Oh my gosh. There is
Yeah.
so much lack in our field. I mean, think lack in general. And I'm gonna say working through my own stuff and money stuff to the point that if anyone, all your audience is listening, like it's been like a layers upon layers. And one of the layers I'm currently working through is like the nervous system around money,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, and it's interesting sometimes when I see the conversations in our field, who has the lack and who has the abundance. And it's
Mm-hmm.
the mindset is very evident when it comes to this. How much shall we charge conversation is like, oh, here we
Right.
go.
Yeah.
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 Well, when one of the things that I think, like you alluded to, just with imposter syndrome and that sort of thing, I think a lot of times we, especially newer therapists that I've worked with and see either supervise or just have done consulting with, that kind of thing, is to recognize what you know and the value of that, and being able to think about it in terms of, okay, you've spent all this time and money in graduate school to help people, and so you should charge for that. And I think a lot of people maybe get stuck at that point a little bit.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. And it really is that mindset shift. And I'm glad that you brought that up, is looking also at it as return on investment and the value that you're bringing, right? The way I say it is like, this is a lifetime of change. This is a generational change with the work that we're doing. You're not just changing one person. When you change one person, it's going to impact every single person they encounter. And
Right.
so it's changing their life, it's changing their family lives, it's changing the generational lives. I think it also goes back to something that I'm doing lately, and that's respecting my license. One thing I was like, I don't feel like we respect our license enough. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
we just give it
Right.
away and don't respect it, even down to
Mm-hmm.
myself. I'm like, no, I need to respect this license and the work you said, the money, the studying, everything we've done, and the continued money
Right.
and what we have to do, not just to get it, but to
Mm-hmm.
maintain it. I think we can
Right.
have some more respect, and I'm respecting my license more.
Right. Right.
And I hope that spreads out with everybody else.
So, what were the big aha moments for you as you built your practice and get to where you are today?
Oh, that's a great question, Gordon. My big aha. Okay, the first one, I always like to do the first things that pop in my head because there's probably so many. Help, asking for help, right? And building a community and having a community. So help looks in different ways, whether you're paying for it through a coaching course,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's my other colleagues. Right now, I have an online business manager. I still have all my colleagues. I believe in community. I always say there is no way I would be the therapist I am if I didn't have my supervisors, my mentors, my community, my help. There's just
Mm-hmm.
no way we can do this alone. And so, help, like being okay with asking for help, receiving the help, and implementing the help
Right.
has been the biggest aha moment. That when it comes to marketing, um, I'm a networking whiz now, and I never used to be. But
Mm-hmm.
learning how to actually have a workshop that I do on this, a free workshop, is just learning how to network in a way that's aligned to me, going back to that authenticity rather than feeling like I have to put on a show.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to marketing, we're so bad at it because we weren't taught, and that's okay to
Right.
everybody. But
Right.
actually learning to break down, like sometimes I feel like I'm cheating myself, but it's like we spend all this money on this education and we literally have to take it and break it down in terms and simplify it. And so learn to simplify what we do for the everyday person so that when they're coming to our website, we're speaking to where they are versus what we know. And I think that's
Right.
a skill that we
Yeah.
have to learn. And
Right.
even in our everyday conversations, breaking it down. And you're like, but it seems so basic, but it's
Mm-hmm.
like our years of experience given
Yes.
in a simplified version. And I feel like that's an art to do that.
Yes. Yes. I would agree. And I think it's, I think a lot of times we take our knowledge of things, just the human experience, I think, with our training, but just also, I think therapists in general just have a helping heart, so to speak. And
Yeah.
we really do want to help people, and we want to see them grow and thrive.
Yeah.
And I think yeah, it's just being able to embrace that, but at the same time, being able to say, okay, I've got to charge for my services. I need to make a living, because if you're not doing that, then people can't get your services.
Hmm.
And so it's
Hmm.
just kind of that double edged
Yeah.
sword, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's scary, right? When we start charging at the beginning. And I think I'm seeing a lot of conversations now. I don't see if you're seeing it, where people are not getting as many clients as they used to
Mm-hmm.
in private practice, and they're feeling scarce. And so having to work through that and learn that skill of building up your practice,
Mm-hmm.
is, I think, is the thing. It's like it's not, I mean, there's days, like, don't get me wrong, that I'm like, "Oh my God, I just think I'm just gonna go get a regular job." And
Mm-hmm.
then and then I leave at like 2 p.m. on a Wednesday, and I'm like, yeah, maybe not."
Right.
Or like I'm off today on a Friday. I'm like, yeah, maybe not. And having the support to do that. But I'm
Right.
seeing a lot of therapists struggling. And I just want to say that with community and really figuring out what is best for you in your setup, I think that we
Mm-hmm.
can all thrive, but we've got to get out of this narrative that we can't charge. Or it's like that's the business mindset, right? Apple,
Mm-hmm.
I always like to give the story of, I'm an Apple girl. I like Apple products, and my
Mm-hmm.
business is like an Apple. It's not a Microsoft over here. If you want to do Microsoft, you go to Microsoft. But you want an
Mm-hmm.
Apple service, you're going to come to me. And I visualize myself as Apple, and Apple does not discount. It's the only people I've ever seen them discount for is people who are students. They don't do
Right.
discounts. And
Mm-hmm.
so if and everyone still buys from them because they need this
Mm-hmm.
service. And I feel like we're made to feel guilty for doing that. And I don't agree.
Yeah, I would agree at your disagreement. So, I mean, yeah, yeah. So, yeah, that's
Yeah.
yeah, and I think it's again, it's that whole imposter syndrome thing of just not recognizing our own worth and not being able to feel like we're somehow or another we're unworthy of being able to
Mm,
collect what we need to collect in
mm.
order to be profitable and successful.
Would you say that you brought up that word twice, but would you say imposter syndrome, would you say that's been a big thing for you working through the imposter syndrome to be successful in your practice?
Yeah, I think it has, and in my experience with talking with literally hundreds of people in the podcast here over the years, that's a pretty universal struggle.
Yeah.
Because yeah, I don't want to get too much on a soapbox, but I think our academic system does people a disservice in that they kind of give this idea that until you get your experience or until you've paid your dues, so to speak, then you don't deserve to have,
Mm-hmm.
the full benefit of what you do.
Mm-hmm.
Or yeah. And so I
Mm-hmm.
think that's something that I hopefully we can
Mm-hmm.
kind of continue to help people
Mm-hmm.
change. But I mean,
Yeah.
and I work with a lot of new therapists doing supervision, and that's one of the things I remind them is that you know a lot, a lot, and so embrace that and be willing to put yourself out there in that sense. But yeah.
Yeah. I agree. I actually just did a which I'll be doing again later this year, but I just did a continuing education on imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so funny. Like, I'm a person, I know all the stuff, and then I go get the research to back it up. So then by the time I
Mm-hmm.
read the research, I was fascinated because I was like, I knew it.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
one
Right.
of the things that it said in the research, Gordon, was that it's the education and these companies that, so first of all, imposter syndrome is just going to happen, right? So once you're
Mm-hmm.
in like a master's level, once you get to master's level, forget PhD. And that is also very common amongst healthcare professionals. So that was the first
Mm-hmm.
thing. Like, we're just going to experience it. But something it said was that how important it is for education supervisors, so so glad you said that, and
Yeah.
companies to really have these discussions about imposter syndrome and normalize it and really help help clinicians work through it because it's going to happen
Hmm.
regardless.
I remember in grad school when we were starting to do our practicums and internships and that kind of thing. And so it was our opportunity to actually go in and do therapy with people. And of course, most everybody in the class was just terrified of that,
Yeah.
just, yeah. And I remember our professor at the time, Cliff Mitchell, just, basically saying full circle back to being authentic and being yourself. Um, he said basically go in there and listen intently, be yourself, and just be nice to the people. And that was his basic advice there. And then, yeah, and all the other stuff fell into place after that,
Hmm.
as far as
Yeah.
that goes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, Bianca, I know we have to be mindful of our time and your time and everything, but tell folks a little bit more about your different endeavors with your practice and
Yeah.
your consulting and all that sort of thing that you're doing.
Yeah. So anyone in Georgia or want to do referrals, Authentically BU is my counseling, is my practice,
Hmm.
authenticallybu.com. They can find me there. And then for speaking, you can use the same website if you need me to speak. And then the Soulful Clinician Collective,
Hmm.
I'm sure I can share the info with you, is
Sure.
my online community where
Hmm.
we have like live office hour sessions. We have different education and resources in the community where we're supporting one another and really starting from kind of like even dealing with some of that imposter syndrome, right? And
Hmm.
marketing and burnout and making money. But really, I believe it starts with our level of confidence. And then
Yeah,
once we're working on ourselves, building out the confidence and, like you said, homing in on what we're good at, then we're able to
hmm,
thrive. And that's a big thing that I help people and support people in the community and their superpowers. And so, and then, yeah, and then I'm doing more continuing educations where you can find more stuff about that on my websites.
sure. And we'll have links in the show notes and the show summary for people to find that easily. You know what? One thought I had, Bianca, as you were saying all of that, is that we can tend to let ourselves get caught up in too much of our negative messages about ourselves.
Mhm.
And, that's stuff we work with clients on a lot. And so
Mhm.
I think that's something to pay attention to and be mindful of,
Mhm.
in just our own clinical work and what we do.
Yeah, I agree. One hill I will die on is that it's so key for us to do our own work.
Oh, yes,
That
absolutely.
is so key. Just
Absolutely.
in general, and there's just no way. And then when you own a business, I always say this to business owners, if you own a business, your stuff will come up.
Hmm.
It's
Oh, yeah.
gonna come up in your business. And so it's
Right.
so key to do your own work. And I think that's the other aha, maybe that's really helped me thrive is that I'm willing to do the work
Right.
and work through those stuff that get in the way of me being successful or being me being a great clinician. So I always
Sure.
say a great clinician doesn't know everything, but they're willing to do the work.
Bianca, it's been great having this
Yeah.
conversation. Any parting thoughts for people as we close things
No,
out for this
ne-
episode?
no, this has been a great conversation, Gordon. I'm glad we've had this. This is the things that are burning on my heart after being in the field
Yes.
for like 11 years. You're like, I'm
Well,
ready.
yes. Well, thank you for the work that you're doing with all of this and
Thank
supporting
you.
those of us that are clinicians and that sort of thing. And again, we'll have links in the show notes and the show summary for people to get to Bianca easily. So
Thank you,
thanks
Gordon.
again. Well, take care.